because the more you hedge and the more you fudge, the more gives Russia the chance to continue this kind of intimidation. Essentially, what's at stake here is the post-Cold War era. And Russia does not want to give up its control and its influence over this part of the West, this part of Eastern Europe, whether it's Belarus, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Azerbaijan, whether it's Moldova. This is what's at issue, the spheres of influence. And Russia doesn't want to cede this to even independence and sovereignty. Let's not even talk about NATO or the EU.
It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? Because, as you say, this really does speak to that Cold War, post-Cold War mentality. Obviously, Vladimir Putin very affected in those Yeltsin-era years by what they saw as the degradation of Russia, the breakup of the Soviet Union. I think there's a quote saying, "We were weak and the weak are beaten." But for NATO allies specifically, I mean, Ukraine is not a member state at this point. And while they reiterated their security guarantees, there's just not that much they can really do if there's an incursion. How would you see that playing out? Because according to their intelligence, Ukrainian and U.S. intelligence, I'm told that an incursion could potentially happen by the end of January.
Yeah. Yes. First of all, the invasion is already there. It's been there since 2014. And they can downscale it or they can upscale it. It's always the pressure. That's the first thing. Secondly, the occupation of eastern Ukraine is a distraction for Ukraine to actually push ahead with reforms. It's always out there. It's always a distraction. This is the second thing. The third thing is EU leaders, they've had so much time to think about what kind of relationship they want with Russia. And they are still divided. And although I'm in Barcelona, when you sit in Berlin, where I'm based, you actually see the German ambivalence towards Russia. Well, we have to maintain some sort of dialogue. But what sort of dialogue? If you don't have a dialogue in a position of strength and a dialogue of some semblance of trust, well, then there's going to be increased tension. And finally, actually, the state of relations between the EU and Russia and the United States is miserable. Just look at the arms control regime. Look at the energy situation. Look at the relationship with Syria. Look at what Russia is doing in the Western Balkans. Some kind of dialogue has to be started, but it's got to be a dialogue based on strength.